Good morning, one and all. How the devil are we all doing? Chat seems very quiet this morning. What's going on with that? I wonder. Dan Cullen is certainly in the house. Morning, Dan. Good of you to join us. I don't think Footy will be with us today because he's on his way to work with Lynch down in Devon somewhere. I can't actually remember where he said he was going, but he's on a 17-ton rubber duck today, so he won't be with us. Anybody else is in the chat? Please let us know you're here. There we are. The flow has begun. Morning, Steve. Steve Williamson has just joined us. Star of stage screen and multiple exhibitions around the world. Good morning, Steve. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. While others are arriving, just something that occurred to me, and I promise you, I don't let these things play on my mind at all. My skin is thicker than that of a rhino. But I may have mentioned yesterday, I posted an article yesterday about mental health awareness and the fact that that's not the same as mental health action, and about the 1,400 suicides in 2021, 2022. And I'd received some criticism from an individual over on LinkedIn who said that I'm constantly negative and that I should be more proud of all that's been achieved. And I wonder, is that same person looking at famine in, I don't know, back in my day, it would have been Ethiopia, but I guess these days, Yemen, somewhere like that. Are you looking at that and saying, rather than reporting the bad news, the people dying, the children starving to death, maybe we should focus on the fine efforts of the aid agencies? Is that what we're talking about? Is that the idea? Same as, Gaza and Israel. Should we be looking at the positives of that? Should we be looking at the positives of Russia and Ukraine? Not the way it works, people. That's not how journalism actually works. Howdy all. Let's go and do the show. Yes, good idea, Chris. Let's have a look. Jim Turner's here as well. Morning, peeps. Morning, Jim. I do have a meeting today. It's only a Teams meeting, so I don't have to actually go anywhere. My favourite kind of meeting. I'm speaking to the fine folks at Caterpillar later this afternoon, basically in preparation for tomorrow's show, which, as you know, is going to be tomorrow, 7 p.m. We're going to be talking all things Demolition and all things Caterpillar at the same time with our friend Gilles Ronnet. But I won't bore you with that now. I'm going to get on with the show because one of the things that I'm very conscious of is I'm doing these shows backwards, and that was never the idea. The problem I've had recently is I've got into a bit of a rant up front, and as a result, people have gone back to work before they've seen the rest of the show. Don't want that to happen. And I'm going to say, I only communicate with my wife these days via this show. So I'm going to say good morning to her. Hope you're having a nice time. See you tomorrow. Charles Construction just joined us over on Instagram. Good to see them here. Thank you very much indeed. And Addis Metal is over on Instagram as well. Good of you to join us as well. Shall we crack on? Let's try and keep on track today. It's not much hope, I realise, but let me try and keep on track. So let me do a bit of this, and I want to post the question of the day at the same time. Morning, Gary. Thank you very much indeed for being here, as always. Sun's out where Dan Cullen is, and the reason I'm chuckling is that Steve Williamson is trying to get me hung. He says, was an amazing party last night, Mark. You're a good host. Never seen so many strippers. Thank God your wife wasn't in. Thanks, Steve. Yes. You need to have more wine to hand if you want to gain Ruth's attention. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Yeah, that and a lot of Greek food, apparently. Yes, she's been enjoying that quite so for all week this week. Ken's got a new Kubota, apparently. Haven't seen that, but I'm sure if he joins us on the show, we'll be hearing all about that. So, yes, let's let us crack on, shall we? It is Tuesday, the 18th of June. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, Komatsu's high-speed, high-reach system. Yes. There's a big bang in South Africa. Case unveils the latest iteration of its dozer. We're featuring the big push from the mighty Caterpillar. Plus, could this new Volvo machine be at Hillhead next week? Could it? But before we get to all of that, there is a small matter of today's mystery machine for you to decipher. So let me have a bit of this first. Have we already had any guesses? I don't think we have yet. So I'm going to show it to you before somebody guesses wildly. Here you go. That's what you've got to work with today. I think it proves that it's not a wheeled machine, but it probably doesn't tell you much more than that. So start your guesses and keep them coming. We'll see who gets to across the line first. I said yesterday I've got the league table standing by for the 1st of July, assuming the 1st of July is actually a weekday. So yes, that's coming very soon. Let's have a look. No, I've already, well, I've given a bit too much away there. I pressed the wrong button. But yes, that's what you've got to work with. While you're working that out, let me bring up let me remind you of the question of the day, which looks a bit like this. Yeah, we're going back to basics and the roots of the show for today's question of the day. And that question is very simply this. What is the greatest innovation in the field of demolition and construction equipment? Now, personally, and I think Jim Turner has said exactly the same thing, actually. Where is he? There you are. He said that. I've actually got written down here. Greatest innovation, hydraulic power. Would obviously be right up there because without hydraulic power, much of what we talk about on this show wouldn't exist. I'd also throw in the original backhoe loader, regardless of who actually invented it. That really helped sow the seeds for the mechanization of the industry, which was a big deal as well. More recently, I think I'd go for the oil quick system, which has totally changed the way in which we do demolition these days, looking very specifically at demolition. Gary Muirhead, not surprisingly, is saying the steel wrist tilt rotor. Luke Carney is here. Morning, Luke, is also saying the advent of hydraulics. Couldn't argue with that. The use of a tilt rotator to its full potential, along with GPS, you can really shape the world with efficiency and accuracy. All pretty predictable answers, but I think they're all right as well. Going back to our mystery machine, is it a no, let me do them in order, or I'll get completely lost. Dan Cullen's going for a Liebherr 920. Nope, tis not. Steve has gone for a Komatsu face shuffle. It's not. A Prinoth track dumper. Now it's wrong. It's wildly inaccurate, but at least we're thinking along less obvious lines. Question of the day. Dan Cullen's going for the JCB 3C and the Hymac. Good answers. The Maruka MST 1500 VD for our mystery machine. It is not. Steve is going for the PC 8000 from the mighty Komatsu, who we'll be talking to in just a moment. It's none of those things, but well, I'm not even going to give anything away today because I want to get some points on the board myself. So keep those guesses coming in, and we'll be right back after this. Yeah, I've already mentioned the fact that I'm a big fan of the oil quick system as an innovation and all that it's brought to the demolition industry. Speaking of innovation in the demolition industry,
the K100 system is a boom change system which allows the operator to change the configuration of the machine from inside the cab without any external help, completely by themselves. So what we have here is the K100 valve block, the one half of it. We've got the main power lines for things like the bucket cylinder and the arm cylinder. The silver kind of stainless steel connectors are for the smaller lines, like the safety valve control lines, and also the water spray and the auto grease connections are on here as well. You can also see these electrical connectors on the bottom of each of the valve blocks. And these electrical connectors carry the power for the additional lights and the working range indication sensors, which are on the side of all of the boom parts. And the clever part of the machine is within these electrical connectors is also the auto recognition system, where the machine recognizes what equipment is fitted to the front, and it can change, as I say, the performance of the auto grease and even the swing speed. There's a lot of changes are made when the machine detects what equipment's fitted to the front. Changing the boom, for example, from dig boom to high reach in less than 100 seconds is kind of where the name came from. But what we're finding is that the customers are mostly appreciating the speed of change, but also the safety benefits, because they don't need people around the machine handling heavy lumps of steel. A development team of engineers in the factory in Newcastle in the north of England who are dedicated to demolition products and specialist excavators. They have complete autonomy from the Japanese engineers. We need support from Japan for certain sort of software developments, but the engineering of the K100 and all of the demolition products is completely within the UK. We have very, very good, smooth operation of the machine. The stability of the machines is always very well praised by the customers, and we feel that that's something of great value that we can bring by developing the machines completely by ourselves.
Yeah, that's a proper British innovation. And Simon Saunders, who was actually presenting that, was part of that design team. He was one of the people that came up with that idea. And he mentioned the fact that the whole idea of that is to be able to change from dig boom to high reach boom in roughly 100 seconds. I've seen that demonstrated several times now, and I've actually seen them get it down to less than 70 seconds. So a minute to change from one boom to another. Going back to what I was saying about the oil quick, one of the things that's changed about the oil quick, one of the things about demolition that the oil quick has changed, is that the operator always, there's no excuse to have the wrong attachment. There used to be a temptation, I think, when it was a bit of a ball ache to change attachments, to try and make do. So if you had a grab on, try and twist a bit of concrete off or something like that. No need to do that now. You just drop it off, pick up another one and go. And that's exactly the same with that. To be able to change your front end in under 70 seconds, close on a minute, it means you've always got the right equipment on there. And it also means, you think about those enclosed sites where you haven't actually got room for two machines, you can be demolishing at one point, and you can drop off that boom, pick up the dig boom, and actually tidy up around yourself. So one machine does the work of almost two machines. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed to Simon Saunders for doing that over at Intermat. Looking forward to getting them on the show at some point in the future. Speaking of which, this is not a Komatsu thing, this is a Volvo thing, and we're talking Volvo a bit later in the show. I've got a date as of yesterday, just after the show. Excuse me, I had an email come through. Obviously, we're doing the dedicated Caterpillar show tomorrow night. That's the 19th of June. The 10th of July, on a Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock, we will be joined by Bill Law and possibly one or two of his colleagues as well from the mighty Volvo. Obviously, it's an opportunity for them to showcase their latest equipment. I went to Eskilstuna and saw 9 new products. I featured some of those. We'll be featuring more between now and then, but it will be an opportunity for you to actually ask questions of all things Volvo, including I think Volvo are a bit of a standout as far as innovation is concerned, so you will be able to address that. But also, I know there's a lot of people in this industry and certainly in this audience that have got certain concerns over electrification. Volvo is a pioneer in electrification. Maybe the two of you can get your heads together and see how you see the future. Oh, let's have a natter. Dan Collins going for a track platform on our mystery machine. It is not. He's also going for a Liebherr 956 track shovel. It's not. Liebherr 9300. It's nowhere near that big. And Steve has just said, look forward to that. Yep, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well, because Bill is very knowledgeable, very, very interesting guy. So looking forward to that. I'll come back to the mystery machine in a second. Just had this from Mick Norton. Britain's skills deficit. A fifth of the construction workforce now aged over 50. A third of workers hope to leave the sector by 2030. CITB estimates close to 1 million tradespersons will retire in the next 10 years. It's now a crisis. Crisis underlined in bold in 72-point type. It's a crisis. It's kind of been a crisis for a while, but that bearing in mind that the CITB actually said recently they were looking for, was it 250,000 additional workers by 2028, and we're about to lose 1 million. Had they taken that into account when they did their calculations the first time round? I wonder if they have. Let me bring back the mystery machine. I'm going to show you a smidgen more. There, does that help at all? Is the orange a clue? Or is it a red herring? Could be. Could be. That is the kind of mood I'm in. Let me see what you think in just a moment, because we've got to play a bit of this, and then we're off to South Africa.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
CDI, explosive demolition, South Africa. Fancy a bit of that? Yeah.
Matt, am I clear to fire?
You are clear from here.
10, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Pretty good, right? CDI really do some fantastic work. I'm going to throw up the mystery machine again. While I'm talking, I'll give you a little bit more to go with. Steve Williamson has gone with a crawler crane. I can promise you now, I will never, ever do a mystery machine that is either an access platform or a crane, because I don't know anything about them. So it's not one of those. Let's have a look. Hitachi EX 2000. It is not. Sounds like Funfire. Not sure what that is. What the hell is that music? Says Peter McKenna. Oh, yeah. See, this is how the audience differs. What the hell is that music? Not impressed. Dan Cullen, meanwhile, tune. Yeah, can't please all the people all the time. I am going to take that away because I want to throw up this. Good morning, Carrie Jones, who says the CITB and the car system that's turned into a money-grabbing racket is the reason that people are leaving. It's at this point that these shows always go off at as a slight left turn and go off at a tangent. But I am inclined to agree with that. And it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder about the thought process of those responsible for training in the industry. So you've got a system that is clearly not attracting enough people. As a result, you have a skill shortage. So your next course of action is to make it even harder for those that are in the industry to stay in the industry. How on earth was that allowed to pass? I have this, and I realize this is just my imagination. I have this thing in my head where there's a board meeting, and maybe I'll bore you with my Las Vegas board meeting idea one of these days, maybe just in a couple of minutes' time. But so there's a bunch of people. Let's say there's 15 people sat around the table, and the CITB's at the head of the table, but there's all these training organisations, and they're all gnashing their teeth and, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're not getting enough people into the industry. Young people aren't interested in a job in this industry. We're running short of people. We need 250,000 people within the next 6 years. What are we going to do? Let's take away grandfather rights and make it harder for those that are already doing the job to continue doing the job. And not only did somebody come up with that as an idea, everybody around the table went, that's a plan. Yes, I'm on board. How? What? Why? And just to, as I've dangled the carrot, my Las Vegas thing, and this relates very much to let me think, it's the Mirage Hotel, I think. Is it the Mirage? Doesn't matter. So you imagine there's a planning meeting in Las Vegas, and they're announcing they're going to build a new hotel. This is probably 30 odd years ago. We're going to build a new hotel. Okay, not a problem. Will it have a casino? Yes, have a casino. How many bedrooms will it have? 5,000. That seems perfectly reasonable. Yep, not a problem. Anything else? No, don't think so. Oh yeah, just one thing. We're going to have a volcano outside. And the planning committee went, all right then. How? Why? But yes, the removal of grandfather rights. We've got a rapidly. To go back to Mick Norton's point there, we've got 1 million people will retire in the next 10 years, and those that are still here have been hit with the removal of their grandfather rights, which makes them even more keen to go and stack shelves at Sainsbury's. Thanks, CITB. Thanks, training organisations. Thanks for loading the double-barrel shotgun, aiming it squarely at your foot and pulling the trigger. Well done indeed. Thank you very much indeed for that. Mick, thank you very much indeed for that. Kerry, now, Mystery Machine. Peter McKenna is going for the Hitachi EX 1900. I can see why you'd say that, but it's not. Dan Cullen is also going Hitachi for the 490 High Ridge. I can see why you'd say that too, but it's not. Keep the guesses coming. I'll tell you what, let me show you a smidgen more. There you are. That's what you've got to work with. No clues there as far as I can tell. Keep the guesses coming. Yes, we do need to press on. We've got a couple of bits and pieces coming up now that are dozer related. So if you're into dozers, stick around. Chris Ford says, words fail me as regards the car system and all its subsections. Yeah, now bearing in mind, well, for one thing, the CITB has got very adept at producing reports on things like gender equality and migrant labour and all that kind of thing. How about you spend more time actually getting people in the front door that we can train up and make into competent people? But then also, if you've got a study that came out, and I'm off the top of my head, I'd say probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, that said we need 250,000 people by 2028. I think it's 2028. And now you're saying that we're going to lose 1 million in the next 10 years. What's the deal there, people? What is the deal? Going back to the Mystery Machine, we've had another couple of guesses. Dan Cullen is going off-piste, and he reckons it's the Haller 300 long reach. Tis not. Peter McKenna is sticking with Hitachi ZX 470. It's not. Steve Williamson is going for the Daewoo S290. It is not. But good knowledge on the Daewoo, or the Daewoo as we used to call it, given they came from Wales. Well, they didn't come from Wales. They came from Korea, obviously, but they came via Wales. If you see, if you get my meaning. Now, I promised you dozers, and dozers you jolly will have. And we're going to start with the fine folks at Case. Case dozers, will they be at Hillhead next week? Who the hell knows? But this is what they look like.
G'day everyone, today we're going to look at the Case Construction 2050M dozer, giving you unbeatable pushing power at your fingertips. Featuring a hydrostatic transmission, giving you a best-in-class drawbar pull. This model comes with a fine grading command which instantly cuts blade speed by 40% for increased accuracy. Plus there's a dedicated button for auto blade shake. With industry-leading visibility with optimised cab-forward design. Offers excellent vision of the blade's edge and a cab-to-ground line of sight. To find out more about the 2050M dozer, head to our website or visit your Case Construction dealer.
There you are, Case dozer. We'll be back with more dozers in just a moment. We had another guest on our mystery machine. Dan Cullen is also going back through the mists of time, and he reckons an O&K Longreach. It is not, I'm afraid. Decent machine, apparently. Yeah, I can't say I've spent any time. I've photographed and filmed one, but I've never actually spent any time in a Case dozer. If anyone's got any experience of that, I'd love to hear from you. I honestly don't know whether they will be at Hillhead next week, but love to think they would be. Let's show you a little bit more of the mystery machine. There you are. Not much of a clue, I don't suppose, but if you know, I guess you know. Anybody got any ideas what that might be? Jim Turner says, I hope to be out of the industry as I currently know it before 2030. Sites just aren't what they used to be. Too much red tape, management doesn't know what they're talking about, and too many blaggers. Oh, blaggers. That's not unique to construction, let me tell you. Oh, the publishing industry, rife with the blaggers. Blaggers and buggers, as far as the eye can see. Really is, but yes, I take your point. But isn't that a sad thing? You know, I mean, bearing in mind, Jim's here virtually every day, but almost every day. He speaks very passionately about, you know, how he wants to get involved in helping other manufacturers to design machines, and you know, he's clearly a construction and a plant man through and through, and yet wants to be out at some point in the not too distant future. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? Mick Norton says, Case dozer, auto blade shake. Case used to do a Terramatic drive dozer, D4 size. Good bit of kit. Yeah, well, as I say, not had any time on a Case dozer, but I'll take your word for it, Mick, for I bow to your superior knowledge on most things. Let me take that away. Now, we've just seen a little dozer, one on its own. Be back in a second with several more.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Up the mystery machine again, which looks like that. Steve Williamson has just said, looks like an old demo rig with some sort of water tank, maybe. Not sure. Chris Ford is going for the Atlas 270 MHLC. It is not. I tell you what, let me just take it away because I want to see how many more I can show you. I can show you a smidge more, actually. There you are. It's not a huge clue, but there you are. You got a little bit more. Yeah, does that help in any way? Probably not, but you know, I wouldn't mind a win, so don't guess too hard, but keep the guesses coming. Yes, JCB's Dancing Diggers. Fantastic. Always a joy to watch it. When I was over at Eskilstuna a couple of weeks back with Volvo, their display was second to none. Second to none. But there is another one. There is another machine demonstration that is famous, not just as a demonstration, but because it is absolutely iconic. If anybody's ever been to the Caterpillar training ground and proving ground over in Malaga, you will know all about it. It's called the Big Push, and it looks like this. Yeah, it's from the French Caterpillar dealer. I've seen that probably 4 times in my life, I would guess, and it is fantastic. Every bit, every time I see it, love it. Something different on promoting power. Let's have a look. Now, Steve does actually ask a question here. Do you know how the card schemes work abroad? Seems a typical UK thing. There are card schemes elsewhere, but let me tell you from the demolition perspective. I can tell you that the European Demolition Association and the National Demolition Association in America have had representations from here in the UK to show them how to instigate a card scheme. I'd love to say that they've done that to raise standards. I'm sure there is a bit of that in there, but on both occasions, my guess is they're doing it. Look how we're making money here at the National Demolition Training Group. You could do likewise. I know they have card schemes in other parts of the world, certainly in Australia. I don't think they're as heavily mandated or enforced as they are here in the UK, because here in the UK they have become a money-making scheme. And it does take me back. I know I mentioned this back end of last week or earlier this week, how we in the UK have apparently accepted the fact that working people should be penalised for working. We're charged a fortune on public transport that very rarely works. We have to pay up front for a competence card that allows us to do the job that we are already doing. It's very, very skewed. As I say, when I went over to Norway, and I realise it's a different system, but an hour-long ferry journey to an island where they were doing mining and quarrying was €2, because the Norwegians have looked at it and said, "Well, people have got to go to work. Why should we penalise them financially for going to work for the greater good of the nation?" Yeah, here in the UK, it is literally take it straight out of the working man's pocket and stick it in our own coffers. I want to be building a few houses of my own, or my own quarry, or just a plant hire to local small building company, says Jim. These big firms and sites are tying themselves up in knots with half-assed ideas and procedures. They dream this shite up, then don't know how to implement. You see, I'd love to, bearing in mind what a negative person I always am, thank you very much, I'd love to be able to tell you you're wrong, but you're not. I mean, how inefficient is the UK construction industry? How much time, money, and resources is actually wasted in this industry? And I've said this before, but I'll tell you the same story again, because it just, to me, it just highlighted an issue. I was on a demolition job, middle of London, and the demolition contractor made a very, very big deal about the fact that they had noise, dust, and vibration monitors literally all right all the way around the perimeter of the site. And they made, as I said, they made a big point. Look at these. And these are linked not just to our system, but they're linked to the local authority. So if we exceed vibration, noise, or dust levels, the local authority is immediately notified, and we will therefore get a phone call, and we could potentially be penalised. And I said, well, that's a fantastic system, but you're just demolition. What happens next? And he said, well, we finish our work and we bag all of these up and we send them back to the company that supplied them, at which point the piling contractor arrives and uses the same company to come back and reinstall them. And I said, that's crazy. That wouldn't it be easier to leave them there? And he said, it gets better than that. He said, because then the steel erectors will come, and the piling contractor will have sent them back to the same company, and then the steel erectors will arrive and they will have to order them from the same company. So rather than the client negotiating a deal, rather than booking these things for 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, book them for a year for the entire duration of the job and just pay once. No, that's far too easy. How a demo should be, not just the standard poop. Poop. Thank you very much indeed for that. Dan's going back to work. Weirdly, the UK cards work in Ireland, but Irish cards don't work here. Funny that, isn't it? Bit like the Scottish pound note. There are, believe it or not, there are places here in the UK, or in England, should I say, and I know of one in particular that refuses. There's a like a little Portuguese cafe very close to where I live, and they actually have a sign up: we will not accept Scottish pound notes. Jim Turner says, I have no intention of retiring or not being on a machine on a daily basis, but I think I need to be heading in a slightly different direction. Yeah, wouldn't blame you. Bloody hell, listening to construction workers is like listening to HGV drivers. They all have the same gripes about two completely different industries. I'm sure it's the same in any industry. I'm sure if you spoke to anybody in a factory or a car plant or something, I'm sure they've all got their gripes as well. But I do feel like a lot of the inequities and the inefficiencies within the demolition and construction industry are very much of our own making. Even if you set aside the fact that the card schemes do raise money for training organisations and trade associations, but set that aside, they make us less efficient. How many times, even just our audience, how many times have people turned up for work and been told, I'm sorry, you can't, you've got the wrong card. Your card should be blue and it is red, or your card should be red, but it is blue. How many times have we heard, I was told to turn up on site, I've turned up in a pair of boots, but they're the wrong boots? How many times have you heard, I turned up in yellow, but was told I needed orange PPE? I went back in orange and they said, no, actually, we want yellow. How many times have we heard that? And all of that is completely of our own making. Entirely of our own making. Very well said, Jim, says Dan the man. Chris Ford is still chuntering on about the mystery machine. You've got one more video, actually. Let me take it away. I want to see if I can give you one more bit. No, that's actually the last image I can show you before it becomes well, obvious. Let's have a look. That's weird that Dan. That's weird that Dan. I was offered a job in Ireland last weekend, but was told I would have to do an Irish competency test on the digger before I started, as my cars aren't recognised over there. Yeah. In London, many shops won't accept Scottish or Northern Ireland notes, and some charge if you do. If you do use it as exchange rate, how bloody ridiculous. It's got the Queen's feckin' head on it. It's bloody sterling. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So our final film, let me take that away. Our final film, it's quite a short one, this one, actually. But I've got to do an intro for it. The actual film itself is only about 30 seconds long. So you've got roughly a minute in which to guess the mystery machine for today. Otherwise, I get the points. So I'll be back after this. Yep, 1 week to go. 1 week, 7 days. While you're watching the next film, I might even be able to tell you how much it is in hours, but it's just 7 days away. This time next week, I will be at Hillhead, and I'll probably be about 2 hours into my working day. I'm hoping that when I get to the SMT GP stand, there'll be one of these here. I can't guarantee it, but I'm hoping there will. Yeah, that's part of the new F-Series that isn't an F-Series, but that is the EC230. A damn fine machine it is as well. Seen that one up close. Looking forward to seeing it again. What we got in the comments. The reason shops here won't accept Scottish and Northern Ireland notes because that many are forgeries. Is that right? Is that right? Jim Turner says, I'm really looking forward to Hillhead. Hope the weather is miserable. Oh, no, stop. You see, it's all right for you. You just live up the road. I've got to pack for all eventualities. And bearing in mind, if you haven't been to Hillhead, there's parking there. It's very good, but you have to come down the hill, or you come down a hill from a car park. Sometimes you have to come down 2 hills to the car park from the car park, and you have to go all the way down the whole road. So if you've got there and you've forgotten your coat, or you've forgotten your sunscreen, or you've forgotten to put a jumper around your waist or whatever, and the weather takes a turn, you're stuck with it. There is no way. If I go down into the hole in the ground wearing a t-shirt and the heavens open, I'm just going to get wet. I'm not going back to the car. There is no point. I've heard a rumour at work. Order for 230 Volvos, but not 100% sure. Oh, hope so. Hope so. Now you're talking, Sir Steve. Yeah, fantastic stuff. So I can now reveal. It is my great pleasure to reveal that I've got one past you. I can tell you. Yeah, there absolutely is. There is a microclimate in that quarry, and I don't know whether it's just. I can tell you the quarry that JCB use for their events is exactly the same. And the bizarre thing about I can understand it with Hillhead because you kind of go down into the hole. You do at the Kevin quarry that JCB use, but you have to go up to go down. So you're actually, by the time you've gone up and come back down again, you're probably roughly at sea level. Whereas Hillhead, I don't know, it's just a complete microclimate. And yet you can literally drive into both of those quarries in sunshine, get down in the hole, and it's different. And I can tell you, I have done Hillhead in rain, in sunshine, to the point where I've actually had sunburn, and I've also done it in snow. Yeah, it's that much of a microclimate. There is a microclimate in most quarries due to the lay of the land. Could well be. Could well be. So, Mystery Machine. I know we had lots of people guessing that it was a Hitachi because of the orange colour. I pulled the wool over your eyes. For 'tis. That right there is a Cenobogan 830R electric machine. Yeah. I thought the colour might throw you. I'm guessing the standy up bit is probably battery arrangement or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but that's what it is. It is a Cenobogan 830R electric. So a victory for me. Long may they continue, because we will be starting our league table in, let me think, it is roughly 13 days time or thereabouts. So we'll be starting our own league table, and we will be giving away a monthly prize, a mystery prize to go with a mystery machine every single month until I've run out of mystery machines to reveal to you. So that's about it. That pretty much wraps up today's show, or the main part thereof. If you want to talk about if you'd like to talk about microclimates, or if you'd like to talk about the card scheme, I was hoping to keep this under an hour today, but you never know. I'll be back immediately after we have a final word from our key show sponsor. So join us for the Craic if you have the time and the inclination. Let's take it down. Yep, number 14. That's where we need it. Good morning, one and all. How on earth are we doing? Today is my final full day of spousal freedom. I get most of tomorrow. Don't pick my wife up from the airport until tomorrow night after the show with Gilles Ronnet. Speaking of which, would you like a quick reminder of what tomorrow's going to look like? I can do that, I think. Where have I put it? He's here somewhere. Bear with. I will go back to the beginning of the chat in just a moment, but I want to show you this. Looking forward to this, says Steve Williamson. Yeah, me too. Always a good one with Gilles. He's been on the show twice before. This will be the third. And don't forget, not only are we doing that, there is one of the, well, there's two of these actually, hydraulic breaker models from the Mighty Caterpillar. We're giving two of those away tomorrow night. So be there or be square. Stay there. Tell her to spend another day there. If she could, she would, but she has to get back to work. Looks like the gloves are off on the mystery machine. I want you to believe that. I want you to believe that, because I want to be able to drop in every once in a while a really, really obvious one. A really, really obvious one, and still get it past you. Steve says, who are you talking to tomorrow night? It's a guy called Gilles Ronnet. He is Caterpillar's demolition expert. I first met him in Japan, actually, about 5 years ago. an absolute. There's not much about demolition and attachments and equipment that he doesn't know. An absolute mine of knowledge, and yeah, a really smashing guy. He's, as I say, he's been on the show twice before, and yes, delighted to have him coming back. And as I say, we've been on a bit of a roll. We had Mike Keogh last week, we've got Shield tomorrow, and then on the 10th of July, we've got a dedicated Volvo show as well. Looking forward to meeting him. I think you'll hit it off like nobody's business. I think you'll enjoy that one. Let's have a look. Bet the Hoover's out before the morning. Yeah, it will be. Yeah, there's a fair bit to do. To be perfectly honest with you, and I am being honest here, I have been pretty good. I've been keeping the house pretty tidy, but there is me tidy and there is wife tidy, and they are two very different things. So yes, there's a bit of work to do. No Caterpillar at Hillhead this time again. I think there will probably be a smattering. Last time around at Hillhead, Finning gave over most of their stand to their Cytec products, so all their GPS type stuff. But there was a couple of Caterpillar machines there to actually demonstrate it. I'm guessing it's going to be the same deal again. Personally, I find that very disappointing because, you know, the Caterpillar display was always one of the big draws at the far end of the whole road. But it is what it is. Need to get a tilt rotor brand on the evening show. I'd be more than happy to do that. I guess the only issue with that really is it's in the nicest possible way, it's a bit of a one-trick pony, isn't it? Here's a tilt rotator. Let's have a chat about it. That's the end of the show. Whereas with Caterpillar, we've got both excavators, we've got a bunch of quick couplers, we've got different attachments and everything else. So, yeah. Remember to put the rubbish in the bin at the bottom so she doesn't see all the takeaway boxes. My kids would grass me up if I did that anyway. But yes, it's a good point. You sound like the voice of experience on that, Steve. That's all I can say. Steve also says, I swear I started to write Senebogen but thought, nah, can't be with that colour. The top of the broom made me think of Senebogen, but I deleted it while I was writing it. Do we believe him, people? Do we believe him? Possibly. Let's have a look. I need to get someone at Kinsoffer to do one. Now, Kinsoffer would be a different animal entirely, because Kinsoffer have got a whole lot more about them than just couplers. Obviously, a whole range of attachments and everything else. And also, is it Prolec as well? They've got that as well. There's a whole bunch that we could do with Kinsoffer. So, Julia, Thomas, all of you people over at Kinsoffer, fancy doing a show? Wasn't the football last time your Catman was on? I remember he was going to watch France play after the show. I think you're right. I think that was the World Cup, so it must be best part of 2 years ago. I don't think that was the last time. I think he's, as I say, Gilles has been doing, with a video crew, he's been doing a European tour. We've done a couple of stops, and the latest stop is going to be in Poland. But yes, it has been going on for a while. Our Robust Track has just joined us over on Instagram as well. Good to see you guys here. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What about Mr. Lynch from Devellon? Get him on. The door is open. Listen, I will reach out to pretty much anyone that wants to do this kind of thing. My only thing with any of these is that they kind of need to meet us halfway. I mentioned it to Bill. Literally, I was walking towards the coach to get myself back to the airport, and I said, we should get you on. He said, absolutely, yeah, we'll do that. Job done. Caterpillar reached out to me. I've already reached out to Komatsu to try and get them to do something as well. But yes, if you've got an in with Devellon or anyone, don't care. We'll do all of that. Not a problem at all. Thomas or Stefan would do a good talk on their products. I could ask. Steve, feel free. The door. I'm a Kinsoffer fan. I've even got the hats to prove it. The door is open if anyone would like to do that. And just on the same subject, and I'm going to throw over to this from Nick Norton, CPCS are accepting the Republic of Ireland exchange details on their website. Even those, even if somebody from CITB, CPCS, CSCS, NOCN, NOCN, NDTG, if any of those want to come on and explain themselves to the mass ranks of the audience, I'll have them on as well. Listen, I don't care. The platform is there to be used. The more people, the better. I'm going to go right back to the beginning. I'm not going to do all the hellos because I think we covered those early doors. But this was the question of the day. What has been the greatest innovation in the field of demolition and construction equipment? I think I'd already written it down, but I think Jim Turner and also Lou Carney said exactly the same thing. Hydraulics. Obviously, because there's not much we can do without the hydraulics. There is Jim saying exactly that. Simple as that. Hydraulics have made our industry what it is. Totally agree. There's Lou Carney saying exactly the same thing. Steve, coming more up to date, the use of a tilt rotator to its full potential along with GPS. You can really shape the world with efficiency and accuracy. Yeah, I mean, I guess, each generation will have its own innovation. And I guess think of it musically. There's no point in trying to tell an 18-year-old what a revolution Elvis was, or the Beatles were, or the Sex Pistols were, because it's not their time. So, trying to convince Steve that, the world without hydraulics was a nightmare. No, he's a younger guy. And tilt rotators, GPS, that is his generation's innovation. I totally agree with it. Question of the day, the JCB 3C and the HiMac. Yeah, the HiMac was it. And I don't... Jardi Correa has just said hello all the way from Brazil. Buona dia. I think that's right. I don't know, but I'll check. But if that's right in Portuguese, please let me know. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. We have quite a following in Brazil. I've no idea why either. Yes, the HiMac, the JCB 3C. And if ever you get the chance, and I know some of you have already done it, if ever you get the chance to go to the JCB Experience next door to the world headquarters, so the JCB Museum, and the chance the JCB products through the years, regardless, and I realise that it's a disputed thing about who actually invented the backhoe loader. Was it Joe Bamford or was it somebody else? Never mind all that. If you think about before the advent of the backhoe loader, if you wanted to dig a hole and you wanted to load the spoil from that hole into a truck, it was a bunch of blokes with shovels. Literally manual labour. And along comes Joe Bamford or whoever came up with the machine before him and said, we can do it better. We can mechanise this. And that mechanisation, not only did it ease the burden on the industry and the labour that was in it, but it also set the wheels in motion for all that we have now. There are no new jobs in this industry that anybody looks at and thinks that would be best done manually. And that all traces its origins back to the advent of hydraulics, the backhoe loader, and those early machines. Bellins94 just started following us over on Instagram. Don't know who you are, don't know where you are, but you're welcome. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Do we have any more on the question of the day? What we do have is this. It's about time they did something with telehandlers. That came up while we were playing the K100 video from Komatsu. The quick change system to change from digging boom to high reach boom and back again very, very quickly. Peter McKenna reckons it's time we did something similar with telehandlers. Does the Bobtatch system work with their telehandlers? I know it does with all their skid steers and their loaders. Does it with their telehandlers? If anybody knows, I'd love to hear from you. This is likely to be the talking point of the day, though. Skills deficit, which I think we already agree we're already in the midst of, but a fifth of the construction workforce is now aged over 50. A third of workers hope to leave the sector by 2030. The CITB estimates that close to 1 million tradespersons will retire in the next 10 years. It's now a crisis. Imagine that. We were all sat here 2-3 weeks ago scratching our beards, those of us that have them, scratching our beards trying to figure out how we were going to find an additional 250,000 new workers, and there are 1 million tradespersons heading for the door in the next 10 years. How do you fill that hole? And we've just been talking about innovation, we've just been talking about the innovation for generations. Is that sentence right there, it's now a crisis, is that the tipping point where we have to accept that we need remote control, or more specifically, we need autonomy? We need to basically outsource to AI some of the roles that are currently filled by people, because those people won't be there. Is that the tipping point? Love to get your thoughts. Love to get your thoughts. Kerry Jones rightly says, well, rightly in my opinion anyway, says the CITB and card system that's turned into a money-grabbing racket, that's the reason people are leaving. It's hard to argue with that. And it's like a double-edged sword that only cuts the working guy. You know, if you're fresh out of school and you want to go and work on site, you've got to come up with the funds to basically get yourself a qualification, a competence card, even if it's just an awareness card, just something to get you on the site. And then hopefully somebody will give you a job and they will pay for your next card. There's no guarantee. You might end up paying for it yourself. So at the bottom end, if you're coming into the industry, you're going to have to fund a degree of education to prove to somebody you can do what it is you're planning to do on the site, even if that is just manning a set of traffic lights or pushing a broom for 6 months. You need to prove that, and that's going to cost you money. And then at the other end, if you've been in the industry for 20, 30, maybe even longer years, you've then got to basically go and prove to somebody half or a quarter of your age that you can do the job that you've been doing for the last 30 years, because they've done away with grandfather rights. It's all, if you looked at it as a cynic, like me, if you looked at it as a cynic, you'd almost think they're trying to get rid of people rather than attract them. You'd almost think that. Let's have a look. Chris Ford says words family as regards this card system and all its subsections. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be the required balance. Going back to my analogy of a meeting room, think of the House of Commons. Not for long, I promise. I'm not going to get political. But if you think about the House of Commons, you have the incumbent government and you have the opposition. And by and large, they're a check and a balance for each other. So, you know, if Rishi Sunak decides the only way I'm going to retain power is to invade France tomorrow, you'd like to think that Keir Starmer and the cohorts on that side of the house would say, no, let's not do that. And they would balance each other out. It strikes me that any decision made with regard to training, and particularly competence cards and training courses, it's literally one-sided. It's, I've come up with an idea that will put more money in the coffers. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. There's no check. There's nobody saying, yeah, but is that not going to drive more people out of the industry? Is that not going to make it harder for people to come into the industry? Is that not going to make it harder for individual companies to keep a check on the training matrices of their employees? There is none of that. It's just literally somebody. And listen, we've mentioned GPS today. How long before we have? I mean, I know we already have training courses for it, but literally, if somebody comes up with a new device, you know, if there's some sort of AI system put into the cab of a machine, somebody at CS, CPCS, Knockin, CITB will go, that's a training course, that'll make us £3. Even though it's an AI that actually knows what it's doing already. But no, you'll need a card in order to interact with an intelligent system. Guaranteed it's coming. Jim Turner, indicative, I'm afraid, says, I hope to be out of the industry as I currently know it before 2030. Sites just aren't what they used to be. Too much red tape, management doesn't know what they're talking about, and too many blaggers. The middle point there about management doesn't know what they're talking about, I think there's a degree of that, but I think the other thing as well is you've got the same situation there as you've got with... I live with a teacher, so I would say teachers would be one thing, and I would say the police force would be another. They are so busy meeting standards, you know, Ofsted standards or whatever the police standards are. You know, I need to fill in this form that says I arrested somebody, and they're so busy doing that, they're not actually out doing their thing. And I swear that's a large degree of construction. There is now so much red tape, so much bureaucracy, so much regulation and legislation that you have entire departments, particularly when you get to the bigger contractors, you have entire departments who do nothing. They do not create anything other than paperwork to basically put a tick in a box for somebody. That's all they do. You've got entire legal departments that ensure that they've checked and double-checked and triple-checked the fact that their subcontractor has the right insurance and stuff. It's just become completely unwieldy. It has become completely unwieldy. And Jim, as Jim raised the point, one of Jim's bugbears is this idea of being able to buy a machine with no gizmos. Just to be able to buy if he wants a 20-ton excavator, just buy a 20-ton excavator. No GPS, no tilt rotators, no fancy diagnostics, no telematics system, none of that. He wants to be able to buy it at a cheaper price, obviously, but then look after it himself. And if he decides at some point in the future, actually, I could do with a tilt rotator on it, he can go and do it. But by and large, he wants a stripped-down machine. What about the notion of stripped-down construction? Yes, you can have all of your PQQs and your various bits of legislation, regulation, and this bit of paper and that bit of red tape. Or, much the same, if I got somebody around to do some work on my house, how much to take that wall down? That'd be 500 quid. Thank you. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to that? Chuck It Demo just arrived over on Instagram. Fantastic name. Let's have a look. What have we got here? Card schemes overseas are, I think, much the same as currency. They've all got their own little quirks and what have you. You'd need to check. But I do think, to this day, if you arrive in a lot of countries around the world with a UK competence card, I'm not saying it will guarantee you work on that site, but you'll be taken seriously, because I do still think that the UK standards are held to a very high regard in other countries around the world. Back to Jim again. He says, I want to be building a few houses on my own quarry, or just a plant hire to local small building companies. Those big firms and sites are tying themselves up in knot with half-assed ideas and procedures. They dream this shite up, then don't know how to implement it. Yeah. And there is the thing. Okay, so imagine you've got a construction company, or an operated plant company, or a demolition company. And let's say you employ 20 people. Chances are all of those 20 people will be at different stages of their career. They will all have different stages of experience, and they will therefore likely have different qualifications in terms of the cars that they've achieved, the equipment they're allowed to drive, the equipment they're qualified to drive, and so on down the line. Now, if you're an individual operator, I'm qualified to drive a dumper and a dozer. That's it. That's all I'm qualified to do. The point that you get to 20 people with their various, him over there, Steve can drive an excavator and a dumper, but he can't drive a dozer. But Pete over there can drive a dozer, but not an excavator. As soon as you've got that system, you basically have created a job of somebody to sit there and monitor nothing else. They contribute nothing else. They just keep an eye on all of those different competence cards. How does that make any sense? Particularly when it's hard enough to make money out of construction anyway. You've got to pay somebody full-time just to keep a watching brief on what qualifications people have got. It's a madness. It really is. Rattle down to the end here. Let's have a look. Hang on a minute. I've gone too far. Okay, so very quickly, question of the day. Steve has gone for heated cab. He's also gone for servo controls. Remember, the 6 handles or more in some machines. Work out that was. He's also said hydraulic quick hitch. JCB bar was a nightmare sometimes. Good few effing thing moment. Yeah, I'm sure there were. Is it because they're making way for technology? I'm sure that's been factored into some of the calculations, but that doesn't cover the people that are looking for a way out. I think a lot of that is purely down to retirement. And if you think of the construction industry or any industry as a funnel, you need to put enough in at the top to make up for those that are falling out the bottom through illness, retirement, seeking employment elsewhere, or whatever it might be. So you've got to be constantly topping up the pot, because the pot has got a hole in it, and that's where we failed, I think. This is why I'm keen on the tech in the future and now. Accept it now and learn what you can. So when the day comes you get an opportunity, you'll be ready. I'd rather know about the tech now, so when it changes, I'll be ready for it. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Because we're no longer in the EU, UK cards may or may not be accepted. Basically, they want you to pay their fees if you want to work. Yet EU immigrants could get work with comparable cards there without too much trouble. Opening sentence from Steve Williamson is probably all you need to know. Card scheme is a shambles. Two people can have the exact same card. One could be terrible in a machine and unsafe, but the person with the same card could be a good operator. Yep. Don't prove a damn thing, I'm afraid. Dan looks like he's leaving us. Says, have a great day, guys. But he then comes back and says, blaggers are bullshit that do my nutting. That's why it's all so effed up. When did we ever use a handbook nowadays to get the blue card? Because there is always someone that can overwrite it. Most of them, because they need the pass rate or need the worker. Very true. Jim says, I feel lucky that my lad has dropped on a plant operator apprenticeship with Dave Collins. But it only happened because of who we know, not because of the industry norm between our schools and our industry. Yeah, there is a hole. There is a hole. GPS course, says Mick Norton, desperate needed, but the CITB solution is to give Lynch 35 grand to set up some training facility rather than create a bespoke GPS course for CITB GPS course suitable pan sector themselves. Yeah. Peter McKenna says, the site I was on yesterday had two machines for one driver. They expected me to scale a rock face to access the second machine with no safety kit, which wouldn't have bothered me had my health been better than what it is. Shocking, though, that someone expects that sort of practice on site. How does a CSCS protect you in the event of a fall? It doesn't, is the easy answer on that. I've heard from a lot of young ones that they've lasted a few months in construction, saying my pal works at Tesco's and gets more than me, I think that is. But I try to say in 5 years' time, you could be on double that and have a career. But young ones nowadays want big ones straight away. They get offered work in a shop for £15 an hour and £12 apprenticeship in construction. They go for the money. Short-termism, but who can blame them? Peter McKenna says, Lynch do GPS courses, but are they Lynch GPS courses for the greater good, or are they Lynch GPS courses for Lynch purposes? A number of plant operators have now undergone specialist machine control training at our dedicated GPS training centre in Cambridgeshire, says Mr. McKenna. This helps them to be able to work safely and efficiently with machine control enabled excavators, dozers and rollers, and is a milestone figure for our training division. I think, yes, there we are. That's a quote off the Lynch website. Thank you very much indeed. Used to pay for training for operators, but I got fed up with people leaving 6 months down the line. The cost outweighed the benefits. Yep. Peter McKenna says, I got both my HGV licenses for a guy that ended up losing a fortune due to the breaking the terms and conditions he laid out when he paid for them. Yeah. The vagaries, eh? The vagaries. YouTube and using it is the best training you'll do and get. It's my go-to. If I want to learn a thing now, first thing I go to is YouTube. Virtually everything that you're looking at now, I learned to do on YouTube, for good or for real. One of the things I've learned in life is big money is short-lived. Ain't that the truth? Yeah, ain't that the truth? Been there. Been there. Steve, HGV drivers have the same gripe comparing working in Audi or Lidl rather than drive a truck than work in Audi. Yeah, it's the same across the board. Listen, I don't honestly believe that is entirely the fault of the younger generation. I don't think we make it clear enough. I said this the other day. Attracting people into demolition. What about all those people that could work in demolition that will never need to get their boots dirty? They don't even need a pair of boots because they work in an office. I don't think we explain that well enough. And I also don't think we explain well enough the potential career progression. If you start on £12 an hour, but you then rise to 15 to 20 to 25 to 30. And you've got, there is, regardless of my personal feelings towards the card schemes, there is a ladder in the industry, and each rung represents a pay increase. And if you're willing to dig in and work hard, and you have the right work ethic, you can be on a pretty good screw in this industry, should you so desire. Steve says, and because of that, I've taught 5 people on how to use it, and they come to me for answers. So it works. YouTube will pretty much show you how to do anything. It will. And if that doesn't, chances are ChatGPT will. Yeah. Speaking of which, I am planning to do another AI podcast in the not too distant future. I've already figured out the subject matter. I've just got to find the time to do it because I do have. I've got to get ready now, actually, for my meeting with the fine folks at Caterpillar. So I'll be ready for tomorrow night. When I cut my teeth on the 3CX, I had the Easter bank holiday to get the hang of it. Then I was straight out on hire. But we've lost that. I think we've lost that with primarily, I think, with younger people. You know, it used to be perfectly acceptable to take your kids on site with you. You know, on a Saturday, you know, get them to sweep the yard, but also to get them behind the wheel of the machine or behind the levers and show them the basics. So when they were old enough to actually go, they could go. But no, we've decided, again, we've put another obstacle in our way. And I'm certainly not advocating for young children running around construction sites willy-nilly. Of course I'm not. Like, you know, I want them protected as much as the next guy. But if you put an 8, 9, 10-year-old boy or girl behind the levers of a 3CX or a mini excavator, the chances are they will be inspired, and a good many of them will stick around. But that's now banned. Average hourly pay for someone cars in most industries is £14 per hour. So no money wasted in training me up, says Jim Turner. The best training I got was a man who used to shout and bawl at you. If you tried hard enough, he'd throw his helmet on the floor. You were expected to work as a team and give the gang a hand as required. You learned how to make things easy for everyone. There's a bit of all of that I do think, and I'm sure there's a good few people in this industry, in this audience now, that will back me up on this. Yes, you are learning to operate a machine. You know, you're learning what function each twist and turn and button press of your joysticks does. But there's more. I think you're learning a work ethic, because construction and demolition is quite demanding. I think you're learning teamwork, because for the same reason, you know, your health and safety and the health and safety of those around you, you're all dependent on one another. I think you're learning that. But I think there's also some valuable life skills as well, all of which is part of that. You know, I think those people that arrive on site at 16, 17, 18 years old, and they're taken under the wing of somebody that's been there, done that and got the t-shirt, they will come out a more rounded and mature person. And a bit like boxing in some ways. You know, where they're taken under the wing of the veteran trainer, and they're shown and Mike Tyson. You know, Mike Tyson was destined for a life of crime. Custom Art took him under his wing and turned him into a world champion. And I think, to a degree, construction and demolition has the ability to do that. Does the new dozer have internet? Not sure what that's related to be honest. What we got here? Learning to drive HGV. I got slapped with a rule if I did anything wrong. I learned fast and passed my HGV 2 in just 4 hours of lessons. How I learned to type. I had pennies on the backs of my hands. This is an old school typewriter. Pennies or 2 P's actually on the backs of my hands, so you kept your hands still and you typed like that. You didn't do this. You typed like that. And if you made a mistake, you got to whack with a ruler. If your pennies fell off, you got to whack with a ruler. And we did it all to music. Yeah. Vaughan Walliscroft is here. So that all makes sense now. Does the new dozer have internet in Vaughan? I thought that was a typo. Turns out there's a Vaughan here. And says it works a treat. Morning, Vaughan. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Jim Turner says, being able to operate the machine is only about 20% of the job. The job is learned over the years, ideally from having a seasoned operator by your side. CITB, CSCS, CPSCS, NOCN, NTGG, NDTG. The job is learned over the years, ideally from having a seasoned operator by your side. You will note that Jim Turner did not at any point mention a piece of plastic or a classroom or a textbook. No, he said, over the years, ideally from having a seasoned operator by your side. Yeah. And on that note, people, that's an hour and 16. I said an hour. I was wrong. I do need to go and get ready for this meeting, so I'm just going to throw this one up on. Let's have a look. Not a 2-day course to get a card to say what? Yeah, indeed. That's the point. You are. It's like you always hear about these people. I went to university and I studied French philosophy. What do you do for a living? I'm a postman. That's the same thing. I've got a card. Does it apply to what you do? Well, not really, but it got me on site. What's the bloody point then? Age 22, says McNaughton, and operating a Cat D8H. I once received a swift left hook from my earthworks foreman when I laughed at his attempts to hand start a donkey engine. Steep learning curve in those days. Damn right. I learned how to drive a machine by watching for hours on end, wishing I could have the opportunity to have a go. It came 2 years after, or 2 years later rather. Yeah. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Ain't no school like the old school. Yeah. Okay, people, go have a good day. Look after your cards because, you never know. Somebody might ask. Somebody far less qualified than you might ask if you have a card. Peter McKenna says, bye all, have a good day. Yeah, indeed. I've got to go and run the Hoover round just in case. Jim Turner says my lad could already drive a 360 dumper, 3CX roller all before he'd finished school, as it used to be, and as it should be again. Sounded a little bit like a clergyman there. I do apologise. Right, people, I've got to go because I must go and do this prep for this Caterpillar meeting. I'll be back tomorrow, and yeah, I'll be back twice tomorrow. In fact, first in the morning for this, and then tomorrow night with Gilles Rame from Caterpillar. Hope to see you there for both, ideally. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic day. See you soon. All the best.